for Impact.
Welcome to the 6th episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling, live from No Cell Studios. I'm the Ace of the Tavern, Acefield Retro. And as you can see, I'm Mr. Solo Dolo tonight. I got Colton joined with me in spirit via picture. He's at a concert tonight, having a great time, but I couldn't do it without him. I love this overlay. I want to make sure Colton's here to break down all the Impact with us. So you can see the beautiful picture of Colton enjoying the time here, and he'll be back next week covering all things Impact Wrestling. You'll see him tomorrow night on Shot Nostalgia. We did a great job covering everything Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. We're about halfway through that season. So just enjoy the ride, guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight on Thursday night. Come keep me company. Put some comments in the chat. Tell me what you guys thought about Impact on AXS, the build that we are on to Emergence, the multiverse show that's good, the combined Forbidden Door-like show with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and all the good stuff going on as we kind of, sift through the fallout of Slammiversary. And we said goodbye to Nick Aldis, as we'll talk about in the news and also talk about it here. And he did it the old school way. He's an old school wrestler who he said goodbye, and we'll talk about that throughout Impact from tonight. And he kind of went out with a ho-hum type of match. I mean, the match was great, but clean ass finish. And we'll talk about that extensively with Eric Young looking like $1 million and building up that feud with the Design and Diener and Khan. But a lot of good stuff to break down. But before we get to the Impact stuff that happened tonight, let's go through the news segment, which we call here so lovingly called The Insight.
The Insight.
All right, here is our news segment here, and it's called The Insight, and we're breaking down all the news in Impact Wrestling. And there was a big announcement for Impact, and they were teasing it earlier today, and they made it official on their broadcast that they will be returning to the United Kingdom. And this is a big deal because the promotion announced a 3-night tour in October, and they're going to be presenting the shows from O2 Academy in Glasgow, Scotland on 10/26, from the Walker Dome in Newcastle, England on 10/27, and finally wrapping up on the third night from the HMV Empire in Coventry, England on 10/28. The tickets are going on sale August 4th, but this is a really big deal. Chad and I were talking about the impact, pun intended, of Impact Wrestling. And when they were doing really well, especially at the height with 2009, they were crushing it over in the UK. And they've been doing a great job of going to Canada, and that's been really a hotbed for them. We watched them have these pay-per-views there. Obviously, Slammiversary was in Windsor, Ontario. They're going to be returning to Toronto for Emergence. But they love running that market, but it looks like they want to tap back into this hotbed that everyone's jumping into. We saw WWE doing their thing there, Money in the Bank. They're looking to go back there to eventually run Wembley themselves. We'll see if they decide to run WrestleMania, but AEW, we know at the end of the summer here, we're going to have All In England. So there's going to be a lot of great stuff happening in the UK, and the fans over there are well deserving. So Impact's no different. They're going to be having a 3-night taping there. It's going to be really awesome to see, Scotland be able to get a show. We get Newcastle, and also, as I mentioned before, Coventry, England on 10/28. The quote was from Scott D'Amore. He said, "We are also excited to come back to the UK with these action-packed shows." He said, "The British fans have always been among our most loyal and passionate supporters, and have been yearning for Impact's return for many years now." So he just pretty much also said what makes this story even more special is that there's many stars in Impact who have wonderful fans that now have the chance to see live and in person, because these guys weren't part of the roster last time they were there. So we're going to be having the advertisement for the shows. I mean, they showed the poster earlier tonight. Alex Shelley, Moose, Eddie Edwards, Deanna Purrazzo, Frankie Kazarian, Brian Myers. We got Ace Austin and Chris Bay advertised, Joe Hendry. But they also advertised appearances from Tommy Dreamer and Gail Kim, which is interesting because they're not advertised for every show. But as I mentioned before, we know the impact that they had there. 2008 to 2016, they were running these shows. They were selling out, but they haven't held an event since that event called Impact versus the UK from Manchester in 2018. So believe it or not, it's been about 5 years since we had a show here in England for Impact. Time does fly, but I think it was due for them to come back here and have a show. And absolutely epic to see them coming back, and just shows the growth of Impact Wrestling. They continue to do great things throughout this year, and I think this is one of their best years yet as far as rosters go. Chad and I were talking about this on Wrestling Tonight, and Colton and I talk about it every single week. There's a lot to be said about this roster and how constructed it is. And I really think it's so well-rounded. You go through every division, the tag division. You also have the lower to mid card with this digital media championship. Everything feels like there's a development for the storyline and there's some importance for all these different characters. And as we build up towards this show that I mentioned before, the Multiverse United 2 show, For Whom the Bell Tolls, we're going to be having Alex Shelley defending his championship. And we all knew he'd be defending the championship, but everyone was questioning who. Well, it's not an official match yet, but he did challenge Hiroshi Tanahashi earlier in the week via social media. And he had said that he wants to wrestle him on August 20th. So you imagine that the champion of Impact wouldn't say he wanted to wrestle somebody if it wasn't going to happen. So it seems by all counts and purposes, we're going to be getting Alex Shelley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for that Impact World Championship. So, Impact social media shared it as well. So this wasn't just a one-off where Alex Shelley was talking about dream opponents. This is going to happen. And they did advertise that Hiroshi Tanahashi was going to be there. They also talked about the fact that Sonata is going to be at Emergence. So they a lot of times announce talent, but they're not going to announce their matches. But I think this is a really good thing. I mean, Tanahashi versus Alex Shelley. We know Tanahashi has slowed down in the last few years. He's been sort of banged up. He's right now in the G1. He's hanging in there. He's doing a lot of stuff. But this will be a nice match for Impact to have, as Alex Shelley continues his quest, as he is taking on this title reign, and everyone expect him to be this transitional champion, but he's everything but that. He got the win over Nick Aldis, and Nick Aldis is no longer here, and that plan's becoming clear about what they're doing. I think inevitably they're going to wind up with Josh Alexander, but this is a nice title defense for Alex Shelley to get a win here, and I think it's going to be a good match. And I think Tanahashi is a guy, he still has a lot of star power. He still has the ability to draw and make people tune in a big title match. Of course, we saw on the Forbidden Door, the initial one, challenging for the title, and I know that wasn't intended to be the match it was with the CM Punk injury, but Tanahashi versus Moxley was a big reason that Forbidden Door, the first one, was a success, and the second multiverse show with Alex Shelley and Hiroshi Tanahashi should be something that would be very, very meaningful for Impact and also for Alex Shelley's reign. So as we know, Shelley defeated Steve Maclin at Against All Odds, and right now we have one match announced for this multiverse show. It's official. Colton and I talked about it last week. It's going to be Leo Rush and Trey Miguel versus Takahashi and Mike Bailey. So it's a mixed tag match with, some New Japan talent and also some Impact talent. It's not a match you can build a card around, but it is an exciting match. And we'll talk about it later in the unfortunate news that kind of broke with Leo Rush getting hurt. We don't know if that match is going to change because we obviously see Leo Rush was pulled off of GCW. He was also, he got pulled from that MCW show. So Leo Rush right now, we don't know how severely he's injured. We don't know if they just did it as a precaution, but that's something to watch out for. But this Impact Multiverse show is coming up soon. It's going to be really awesome, August 20th. And Impact has a lot of great things on their calendar. As I mentioned before, they got the Emergent show. They also have, some stuff as they're building towards Bound for Glory. So good stuff on the Impact calendar as they build towards 1,000 shows for Impact, which is another thing in White Plains they're going to be doing in the beginning of September. The other thing here in the news, we got some clarity on Chris Sabin's condition, and that was made clear on this taping here, of course, because he was out there being active, making the save. But Chris Sabin, we didn't know if this was a work or a shoot, and I think everyone kind of were holding their breath that Chris Sabin was okay, and maybe the match was supposed to go that way, and they did a really good job of selling and making Chris Sabin look a certain type of way. But he was talking about in this virtual signing, this place called Captain's Corner, he was signing autographs and having conversation in between. Talked about a dream match for the Motor City Machine Guns would be FTR. And he was just talking about how amazing it would be. And he said, I think it's one day possible. Obviously, we thought it was going to happen in AEW. It turned out to be a 6-man, and that was fine. But I think it's possible one day. I'd love to have a match against those guys. I think they're insanely talented, and they have such a cool style because they like old school in today's atmosphere. And I think that's really cool. It makes them stand out. And he also continued, they're both cool guys, great wrestlers, and I think it would be awesome. So I pulled from the story mostly that Chris Sabin's okay. And of course, we saw him again, active, making the comeback, making the save for Alex Shelley on the taping the night after Slammiversary. No one made that clear, and I think a lot of times the tapings kind of get discombobulated and people don't know exactly where they're going to air. Sometimes there's multiple days of tapings, and there were obviously for Windsor, there was 2 nights, and no one really released that Sabin was okay. And I think that kind of added to the conversation that no one really knew if Chris Sabin was actually hurt. If you watch that match Slammiversary, it's hard to believe that the match was intended to go that way. And maybe it's to set up the rematch for Leo Rush down the line. But everyone's looking forward to the work rate match of the card, and seeing it end in a shortened fashion with a concussion angle was something that we weren't expecting. But sometimes booking goes that way, and they want to build a longer story with Leo Rush and Chris Sabin over this X Division Championship, or maybe the longer story is Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley over the World Championship. But we don't know if that story is going to have to change now with Leo Rush being hurt, which we'll talk about in 1 second extensively. But I keep mentioning it here. It's just a shame, and injuries change plans altogether. And we saw an injury happen to Steve Macklin. He was the champion that kind of took the transitional championship when Josh Alexander got hurt. They boosted him up to the main event. He took that championship and was defending it. Surprisingly, Alex Shelley beat him. But Steve Macklin was in this program at Bully Ray. He was in the program with Scott D'Amore, and he's supposed to be in this semi-main event at Slammiversary. And we didn't hear why, because they tape in bulk, and sometimes people were saying as they wrote PCO off of the match, and maybe it was a work, and they wanted to make sure he's off TV. But it seems like it's all a shoot. He had hurt his groin. He's now recovering more rapidly than they thought he was. But when you hear torn groin, you think, first of all, that sounds painful. And him being out of action since right before Slammiversary, it seems like he's going to be coming back. According to PW Insider, he's doing much better than anticipated. And the report states that, quote, continues to be monitored in the hope he'll be clear to return much sooner than initially expected. So not sure the exact timetable for a torn groin. It's not quick, but I mean, anything, quicker than months would be better than what was originally the prognosis, because people were saying he was going to be out over a year. So at this point, Steve Macklin, hopefully he can get back, because he was rapidly put up the card and he was holding his own. I think he did a really good job of being this main eventer in a time where they really needed someone. Josh Alexander getting hurt cleared that space, and Steve Macklin took it and ran with it. And I think they did a good job at his presentation. So I'm excited to see what he can do when he comes back. So we're also talking about this weekend tomorrow, most notably, Impact's we're going to be returning to Chicago this weekend with back-to-back nights of wrestling from the Cicero Stadium. So we have this taping, and they do these things, 2 nights of tapings, and it's going to be called Chicago Heat. So tomorrow and Saturday, they're going to be having some matches here, and these are going to be the tapings for the next few weeks. So you're going to see these spoilers pop up on whatever, Observer, Squared Circle, social media. But I like how they're doing these super shows, and these matches look really, really good. So, of course, we're going to have maybe they'll do them in order. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll piece together some of these matches. Maybe some will be not televised to incentivize people being in the building to watch these. But the match is happening tomorrow night. We have Samurai Del Sol, Black Taurus, and Laredo Kid taking on Bully Ray, Moose, and Brian Myers, which is a nice match. We're not usually seeing Black Taurus and Samurai Del Sol and Laredo Kid all in Impact. Cool to see they're going to be in Chicago for these tapings. We also have a tag match, Speedball Mike Bailey and John Gresham versus the Rascals, which, of course, we know Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. We're going to be having ABC, Ace Austin, and Chris Bay versus Rich Swann and Sammy Callahan. And we're going to be having that 3-way digital media championship that they hyped on the show tonight, as we'll talk about when we get to Impact on AXS. Joe Hendry, Yui Uemura, and Kenny King. Like the way they set that up. Really awesome to see. And we know that TV championships, and this is Impact's equivalent to a TV championships, this digital media championship can change hands rapidly. So it would not shock me to see Joe Hendry take this title back, or maybe they hotshot and put it on Uemura. Like, that's the other thing that's crazy about these TV championships. As we learned from the history of wrestling, we covered WCW 1996 extensively. We're covering Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We watched the Beat the Champ TV championship change hands almost on a weekly basis. And I think the digital media championship could be served best acting like a championship like that. And I know Joe Hendry had a really nice run with it, but this title bouncing back and forth wouldn't be such a bad thing. And I know the spirit of a TV championship is being defended. And digital media, of course, is YouTube and social media. And I guess you have to make some exception when you're watching the shows. And some people do consume Impact on social media. They're watching it on YouTube. So you could say this title would be changing hands or defended on social media. So I do like that it's defended. I would like to see it defended more frequently. I think it should be defended almost every time you tape, because it's one of those championships that should be on the show. I know they only have an hour of taping, but they should find a way to defend it a little bit more frequently, especially getting these guys on TV. It's great. But I got to compliment them with the undercard. I think it's awesome to see there's an undercard and an underswelling of stories for guys that are not involved even in the main feuds. It's really awesome to see. So on Saturday, we have more tapings. Chris Sabin versus Samurai Del Sol, Alex Shelley versus Brian Myers for the championship, Deonna Purrazzo versus Kylan King, Eric Young versus Khan with Diener, which was set up tonight. Moose versus Kevin Knight, Trinity versus Taylor Wilde, and Bully Ray versus Black Taurus. So 2 nights of really exciting action from Cicero Stadium, Chicago. So they have the next 2 weeks of tapings going to be done here. Hopefully the crowd's excited to see the show, and we're going to be having, we saw Windsor. They were pretty excited to see what they were doing. Slammiversary's crowd was great. We also had, tonight's taping was awesome to see. So good stuff to see. But yeah, I mean, it's all awesome stuff here for Chicago. We got RK Shuttleworth in the chat here. What up, RK Shuttleworth? Saying Kalisto. Is that who you're saying Samurai del Sol is? Is that what you're saying? But awesome to see. I'm excited to see what the tapings are, what Cicero Stadium looks like for Impact. I like when they kind of take over a city, and we're going to be seeing them having a presence in a city that's been dominated by AEW for the past, 4 years. And it's awesome to see they're kind of tapping into that as well and feeding off the momentum in Chicago. We know Chicago is such a great city for pro wrestling. So seeing Impact, touch down there in Cicero Stadium, I know it's not, the Now Arena, or it's not the All-Star Arena, but it's awesome to see those same fans are going to be tapped into watching Impact in what looks to be 2 nights of really quality wrestling. We get 2 title matches, one on Saturday and one on Friday as well. A world title match. And of course, you probably don't think the world title's changing hands. We know Brian Myers is not beating Alex Shelley for the championship, but this will be really cool. And of course, next week we'll be covering everything we see, because this will be taped. All these matches, that 3-way digital media championship kind of carrying most of next week's show. Joe Hendry and Yuri Uemura versus Kenny King on a triple threat for the digital media championship. And as I was teasing before, the last piece of news here, Leo Rush injured at the MCW Shane Shamrock Memorial Cup show. So this popped up on Twitter earlier in the week, and someone that was at the show said he won the qualifying match, injured his shoulder. He was supposed to compete in the main event, and then he was pulled, and he was supposed to compete on the next night, was not there, could be precautionary. But then also we saw the news drop today that he's no longer going to be booked for the upcoming GCW show this weekend. So who knows what's going on? Hopefully Leo Rush is okay. He had a lot of momentum on the build-up. They gave him a lot, gave him the X Division Championship. Was really impressive. Felt like a main eventer upon entry. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he's okay, because it would be very detrimental, to the momentum, obviously, if he's not able to compete. And hopefully, we know those shoulder injuries can be nagging, that we're going to see a little bit of some good news here. And it's hard to tell really what's actually going on with some of these injuries. As we mentioned with Chris Sabin, with these tapings in bulk, these 2 weeks, a guy like Nick Aldis has been out of the company for a few weeks now. And we saw for the last one tonight. And that's kind of what happens here. And these injuries take a little bit of time to get some clarity. And we saw Leo Rush tonight, but of course this was the night after Slammiversary. So none of the injury was done yet. So keep your eyes peeled on Leo Rush. We'll keep you updated here on what the status is on this, because it would be a damn shame if he was going to go out for a long-term injury, especially with all the stock they're putting in him. And I think he's integral to what they're doing in the main event scene right now. I think people are understating his importance of this Alex Shelley, this Chris Sabin, this top of the card feud with Josh Alexander. Leo Rush plays a really big part of this with Option C. I really think he's going to play a big part. If he's healthy, I think the intention was for him to be involved. It would not shock me to insert himself in a big way in this title feud and possibly take that title down the line if he was healthy. Maybe those plans change. Maybe we never know exactly what was going to happen, but has me worried that the injury, and like anytime you see an injury, and we know that on these independent shows, if anything is wrong, he's going to sit out and be cautious, to say the least, and make sure he's good. Haven't heard any other news aside from, pulling out of the GCW show. So again, we'll keep you guys updated, but that is the news. I'm really excited for these Chicago tapings. I'm really excited for them going back to the UK. RK Shuttleworth, I'm not sure if you saw that earlier today about them going back to the UK, the one night in Scotland, one night in Newcastle, and then one night in Coventry, 3 nights in a row in England. First time since 2018 that Impact's going to be running over there. Going to be awesome to see. Hopefully they put out a good card. They're probably going to do typical Impact tapings there for the show, but we know that crowd's going to be up for it. They're going to be excited to show out. And as we continue to see, we're going to get a lot of stuff going on with Impact Wrestling and internationally. We saw the Australia tour went as well as it could go. They were in an area that does not do predominantly well for wrestling shows, but they went out there and, I thought the presentation was good with that. So I just like to see them expanding in different markets. They got very comfortable in Canada for the last couple months. Let's see them spread their wings elsewhere. And I like to see Chicago get involved. They're coming to White Plains, New York, which is border on Queens, in September. It's going to be awesome to see, but looking forward to all of that. That being said, let's get into the show we just watched tonight. All the buildup that we keep talking about, everything that happened the night after Slammiversary and the tapings, and kind of say goodbye to Nick ALDIS in our blow by blow.
Blow by blow.
All right, blow by blow. And as I mentioned, we are from Windsor, Ontario. This is the night after Slammiversary. So we have a big match feel in the main event. And it felt that way from the beginning. For the first time since 2014, the two Impact former world champions will be facing each other. Eric Young, Nick ALDIS in the main event here. And for a show that was taped, and I understand it's a lot of the same audience that was there for Slammiversary, it was very much a pay-per-view level crowd, a lot of the same fans. They were up for that main event, and it felt very, very important. The last time that these two were in the ring wrestling for Impact, September 2014, the one-night only pay-per-view, we know Nick ALDIS was not Nick ALDIS. He was Magnus. And really awesome to see. And again, old school as old school gets, and we'll talk about the main event extensively. Match was largely uneventful, felt big, but Nick ALDIS going out on his back and making Eric Young look strong on the way out, which is the most old school, traditional type of stuff you can see here. No fun and games. Eric Young looking strong on the way out, but of course, building up to his future story with the design. But let's talk a little bit about Before the Impact. And if you guys are not watching Before the Impact, they do a good job of catching you up during the show. It's always weaved into what we're doing for Impact. It really is. And I think Before the Impact is a nice appetizer to put on 45 minutes before. You can just chill, put it on. And we had a match on here. Joe Hendry and Yuri Uemura teamed up against Kenny King and Sheldon Jean. The story on this really set up that Chicago Heat taping that's going to be happening tomorrow for the Digital Media Championship. Of course, Joe Hendry, we feel like he's obligated, and he earned a rematch for this championship against Kenny King. And we feel like obviously he's going to have that moment to shine. They really threw in a wrench for those plans with Yuri Uemura getting the pin here over Kenny King and setting up the future Impact feud for the Digital Media Championship. And now things get muddy. We talked about Chicago Heat. We could have a little bit of a diversion where Joe Hendry, everyone's expecting the main feud to be Kenny King, and all of a sudden we got Uemura tossed in this. I like this triple threat that's happening next week. I think it's potential. It could go any way. And typically when you see a guy win a championship, we know that championships usually don't change hands that quickly. But again, going back to the history of pro wrestling, if this is equivalent to a television championship, there's no reason why it can't change hands on a weekly basis. And it would not shock me to see this happen. And maybe it's not even Joe Hendry gets the title back. It could be very interested if Ua gets the title after all that. And all of a sudden, two friends are now kind of enemies on the other side of it, where he's holding something Joe Hendry wants so badly to get back. And it has a lot of meat on the bone, as we like to say here in the tavern. But going to the main show, St. Clair College, the Sportsplex in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And this was taped on the Sunday following Slammiversary. We open up immediately with Trinity, who gets a great reaction, making her entrance to the ring. Dani Luna from Subculture was at her side. Big reaction, as I mentioned, the new Knockouts Women's Champion. This is the first time they're seeing her since she won the championship. As far as the match goes, I mean, they took on the Coven, Kylan King and Taylor Wilde. Not a great match at all. And as far as opening goes, Trinity brought the energy, but everything else of this match sort of fell flat, in my opinion. I thought really the extended heat on Luna throughout the match as they're trying to build up that hot tag Trinity took away from the match. It was a little bit awkward. Usually these tag matches work well as building up stuff, but the Coven feels like they're trying to get their feet back under them, trying to build some momentum. And it's weird to see him in this spot just as fodder for a Trinity win. And Dani Luna was, at this point, she's being sort of showcased here at the side of Trinity. And I think if I was going to be booking Trinity going forward, really Deonna Purrazzo is the moment you want to have against Emergence. She has to get her rematch. But with Trinity taking on Deonna Purrazzo, I think you could have did something a little bit different here to open the show. Of course, they get the win here. With Trinity looking strong, but Deonna Purrazzo, the stories after the match, coming down to the ring quickly, not even a promo. She just says, I want my rematch, and it's going to be at Emergence, and we go over there. And at this point, we're going to be having that match, and everyone expected it. Big match feel. We talked about Slammiversary. We talked about it here with Colton. There's a lot to be said about moments and just feeling of the match. The entrances alone, Trinity and Deonna Purrazzo standing across the ring, felt like a big match. And having Deonna Purrazzo on the other side, the next pay-per-view, it's not really pay-per-view, it's a special streaming event they're having that's called Emergence. It's good to really solidify what Trinity's doing, and another win would be very good for her to build her as really the top of this new Knockouts division. So we have RK Shuttleworth in the chat here. Coven didn't look great. I agree with that part. They should have got more. And yeah, I agree. I think it was an awkward opener. And we have to remember these tapings they're taped in bulk sometimes and out of order. I think this is how it was taped. Crowd was into Trinity though. We can't take that away. It got them all. And I think that was the idea. They wanted to open the show hot with someone like Trinity to get them excited, and they were. And then the crowd was into this. I just thought it probably could have been a little bit better. And, I think the moment with Deonna Purrazzo was done well. Maybe they should have gave her a little bit more time on the mic too. That would have been nice to have a little bit of back and forth, but we all know the story here. She's contractually obligated to get another rematch. And here we are with the match here for Emergence, Deonna Purrazzo versus Trinity for the Knockouts Championship. And we move over to Lio Rush, as we mentioned before, backstage. Moose and Myers come up to him. They're saying that Lio left them hanging last week. And Lio was just saying, listen, I have no problem with you guys, but I don't understand why you would align yourself with him. The aforementioned him comes up behind and says, who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? And it winds up being Bully Ray. And really, they put him on the spot to say, we don't know whose side you're on. It's not about friends. It's about kind of, if you're not with us, you're against us. And Lio Rush has a decision to make, being surrounded by really three big men. And Lio Rush kind of stood his ground against Bully Ray, which was cool to see. But he has to make a choice by the end of the night because this heel tandem of Bully Ray, Moose, and Myers are going to make him choose. And he has to choose a side. Are you going to be on the side of Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, and all those other guys on that side? Or are you going to be on the side of Bully Ray and ourselves? And that's where we leave Lio Rush sort of thinking about it. Brian Myers shining up the X Division Championship on his way out. So that was very interesting. And Brian Myers as a heel is very, very well done. I like this team of Moose and Myers every single week, and we'll see them in action later on down the line on this card. But good segment here. Again, when I'm watching this, all I can think about, hopefully Lio Rush is okay, because there's so much story to be told with him. We have this Dirty Dango promo here with Johnny Bravo, who we saw last week. He was in that Riot gear. He's the one that helped him get the win over Santino. And Dirty Dango was talking about why I need security, because Scott D'Amore has been hitting people with chairs, and all the other management, like Santino Marella, is attacking people. And he also said, everyone's calling my security Johnny Bravo. His name's not Johnny Bravo anymore. It's Alpha Bravo. And these Dango segments have been really well done. He continued to take aim at Santino's daughter, saying he's going to take her out to Applebee's. Her favorite appetizer is the popcorn shrimp with the cocktail sauce and all. Dirty Dango. There's something here. And this anti-wrestling gimmick that he has been doing is untapped gold. I think he's doing a great job. And this is undercard stuff. Colt and I were talking about Santino and Dango, the build for this. And this is really below undercard stuff. And it's still damn entertaining, which speaks volumes about what Impact's able to do with their storytelling. Dirty Dango as a heel like this is absolutely epic to see. I really like what he's doing. Even like his tights with the slap here to make fun of slapping your thigh for kicking. It's spot on. And I think it really fits his personality, and he's leaning into it. Interested to see where this goes. Like to see that they're not leaning on the nostalgia act with him. Like, he could easily just be Fandango 2.0 or figure out a way to do the stuff he was doing with Tyler Breeze in NXT or some variation of it that's so easy to do that what got over elsewhere, he's completely reinventing himself. And at the very least, I can appreciate that. And this has been entertaining. And Dirty Dango, these segments have been creative. That's what Impact does really well. These creative segments that find a way to showcase guys and their strengths. And Dirty Dango here did just that. Just outside in front of a brick wall. It feels very industrial. Thought it was very, very good. And we lead into our next match here, which was built up last week. And we talked about it in the news. Ziggy Dice, his contract has expired with Impact Wrestling. So we all knew the ending of this match. We knew eventually Ziggy Dice would be leaving Impact, but we didn't know how it would get there. They set it up last week where Johnny Swinger and Ziggy Dice were baiting Scott D'Amore. If you guys have been following, Johnny Swinger's been trying to get a title shot. Scott D'Amore's been putting hurdles in his way, saying you need 50 wins. They did Ziggy Dice getting his referee's license, so he was going to be the referee, and he's going to start fixing matches for Johnny Swinger. And if you guys are familiar with Johnny Swinger, he's been in the business for a goddamn long time. You know, cups of coffees in WWF and WCW, and seeing him here and with the same name, we also saw him in ECW, by the way, too. So he's been all over the place. And this, if you watch this face value and be like, this, what is this doing on the show? This is sort of the variety. This is the buffet type of stuff for Impact Wrestling, where this is not for everybody, but this is something different that they're offering. This is comedy level stuff. And I thought it was funny. It was short lived. It wasn't over the top where it took too much time off the show, but this loser leaves town match or loser leaves Impact match, as they were billing it. It was short, but it was entertaining. And both personalities are large here. Ziggy Dice, you know, I loved his run in NWA. I feel like it was not as fruitful here in Impact and probably could have been better, but great personality. Is going to go on to do other things elsewhere. We'll see where he winds up. Match. They tease the finger poke of doom stuff here where he, you know, puts his finger down and then Ziggy Dice goes over and cradles him. And then we have the stuff on the outside where, if you're familiar with it, Johnny Swinger comes out in that cart that's similar to like that Andre the Giant cart or the WrestleMania cart where they take all the entrances out. He finally lets Ziggy Dice stand in it, clotheslines him out of the cart once he's standing there posing, brings him in the ring and puts his feet on the ropes and pins him. And now Ziggy Dice must leave Impact. He looks heartbroken in the ring. Johnny Swinger is celebrating. And again, knew this was happening. Ziggy Dice was leaving Impact. But I have a few questions. What championship does Johnny Swinger challenge for? How quickly do they just pay this off? Do they continue this story in some capacity? Because that's what's been keeping Johnny Swinger in a comedy role on our screens, is chasing that title shot. Now that he has the title shot, curious if Scott D'Amore will give it to him. Maybe they'll put some more hurdles in his way because he cheated or whatever they decide to do. Because I feel like once you have him have that title shot, there's no way he's winning any of the championships he challenges for. If they do that, then the shtick is over. There's nothing else. So I think maybe kind of roll the ball a little bit further down the line and see where you can take this. Because I think I am entertained by it. And maybe some people are not. Curious to see the reaction to the Johnny Swinger stuff if people don't find it funny. I think every show probably, like I said, it's an eclectic mix of different styles of wrestling. And this is just the comedy piece of the show. And if this was your main story that's streamlined through the whole card, yeah, I get it. That's why you wouldn't like it. But all told, it probably was less than 5 minutes. So I have no problem with this on the show. I think it was really well done. And now the question is, where do we see Ziggy Dice going? Do we see him wind up elsewhere? Is he going to do independence? Is he going to be, I don't know. But you'd imagine maybe NWA takes another swing at him, and because of how well he did there, and they packaged him really well. But he obviously has other plans. And we've talked about Impact, where we've had people working without contracts. We talked about people that come in and out of the promotion. There's a very progressive mindset of Impact, as we can see, that they let talent work elsewhere, and they are not as tied to keeping guys as locked up. So if a guy's not signed, it doesn't mean they're gone forever. If that makes sense, we're going to have people coming in and out of the promotion. So wouldn't shock me if a guy like Nick Aldis or Ziggy Dice comes back down the line. It's just not right now. So some good stuff here. As I mentioned, the BTI thing, this is why it's important to watch it. Yua and Joe Hendry are backstage. They're with Santino, and Santino's talking to them about all the buildup. And they made a triple threat for the Impact Digital Media Championship next week. This will be taped tomorrow at the Chicago Heat taping. as we talked about extensively before. Not sure where it's going to go, but it has me intrigued. Inserting Yua into this is very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me. And we have RK Shuttleworth in the chat here. Good at social media, then the digital media championship would work, although not likely. And what they might do is get him a fake belt. That's a very good possibility. I think that could be something that would be awesome. And they're going to have to pair Johnny Swinger with somebody else. And I'm not sure who else on the roster could be paired with him, taking that Ziggy Dice role and put him with somebody. And I think someone would benefit from that story that's not doing something. So stay tuned for that. I think there's more meat in the bone. I do like the fake championship thing. I think that could hold some weight because that could keep this thing going a little bit longer. We have a quick Nick Aldis promo here against Eric Young, which is really well done. Very old school. I love the Nick Aldis presentation. Everything about Nick Aldis is great. I think it's pro wrestling personified. And Nick Aldis here is more, it's very simple promo. It's time, it's date, it's who he's wrestling, and targeting Eric Young, referencing their history and talking about how they met here before and all the stakes have changed. They're two different people. Great promo here. Presentation was great. And then we lead into to me, an amazing match here. Giselle Shaw with Jay Vidal and Savannah Evans in her corner, taking on Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly. This was a great, great match. And seeing Masha Slamovich with Killer Kelly, that whole presentation, Colton and I talked extensively, fresh off their feud, that dog collar match, now teaming as MK Ultra, now as the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Absolutely amazing. Giselle Shaw, can't say enough nice things about her. She has been so intense in the ring. Really, as someone like Masha is so, she brings so much energy and so much, really, it's intensity into the ring. And Giselle matched her every step of the way. I thought this was great. It showcased the Knockouts division in such a positive light, where it emphasized the depth that they have. And we heard the whole conversation about the AEW women's division that was emphasized last night with the issues that are clear there. And it might be, you blame it on injuries, blame it on whatever you wanted to blame it on. They need to take a page out of Impact's book about how to present that division, because Impact continues to present their Knockouts division top to bottom in a great way, to the point where they could probably justify having a mid-card Knockouts championship and be able to have meaningful stories. You cannot say the same thing about either side, AEW or WWE. The top of WWE, the women's division, might be better quality as far as who they are, but the stories that run throughout, absolutely not. There's no chance that it even holds a light to it. No one is doing top to bottom what Impact is doing for women's wrestling at large. So I think at this point, just seeing this match, no stakes for the Knockout Championship, not involved with Trinity at all, telling meaningful stories here with the women here. And Giselle Shaw gets the win as well. And of course, it's distractions. Jay Vidal and Savannah Evans are never not going to get involved at ringside, and the ref just looks silly allowing them to be there. But Killer Kelly got involved as well. And of course, she was evening the odds. But I thought Giselle Shaw looked equally as strong as Masha during this match. She got a win. It didn't feel fluky. Of course, rolling up can be taken as that. But she hit her finisher. And, with the knee to the face, that's pretty devastating. So thought this was great. It was shocking to me, especially fresh off winning those tag titles. You wouldn't think that they would lose, but this might set up Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans versus MK Ultra down the line at some big event. And there you go. You go to war. The Knockouts tag division is thriving to me. And like I said, Giselle Shaw is great. And I was very impressed with this match. Masha continues to impress me every stage she goes to, Impact, GCW, whatever independent she decides to work. Fantastic. And I can't say enough nice things about the depth of the women's division. It's even more glaring when you watch AEW on a weekly basis, and they give them 5 minutes. They give a squash match for the women, and that's it. We're watching these women. There's, out of the matches here, 2 of the first 3 matches are from the Knockouts division. And I was critical of the first match, but it was still 4 women featured on the card in a meaningful way, not a squash way. You get the champion opening the show. Great, great match. And honestly, we'll talk about my match of the night, but that one was damn close. So we have a video airing about Jake Something. We talked about him last week. Dude is impressive. He's like Hercules Hernandez times 1,000. And I'm so impressed with Jake Something. So excited to see him back here. Like to see the video package. Video packages are understated in wrestling. They don't do them enough. I think these video packages they used to do to hype up people's return or hype up their debut, WWF, WWE used to do it so well. I think it's something that's well suited to be in wrestling where, sometimes the video package, if the guy's not on the card, just to have people keep him in your psyche, show the video package. Sometimes those can drive it home. And some of the ones that stick in your mind a little bit, I remember the ones that built up when Triple H was returning from injury, but also even the debut ones like Carlito's vignettes, what he was like being put on screen. That has so much meaning when you have people staying in there, and backstage interviews work this way, but having a guy on the card, very, 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 very important to keep. He's especially a guy like Jake Something. He just debuted. And if you go back to the critique to AEW with all the stuff that happens on there, someone debuts or someone comes back or someone's in a big program and then fizzles out, then they're off for 4 weeks. This is a great way to keep someone on the show. And I think Jake Something is now in the psyche of the Impact Wrestling fan, even though he wasn't on the card wrestling. So we also have a Frankie Kazarian segment here. He's in the back with Tracy Brooks, and they're talking about how Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards have been giving them trouble as of late. And now it seems to have boiled down to Alicia and Tracy Brooks, and this is continued the Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian feud, which tells us it's not over. They're going to have this third sort of rubber match, and maybe it's going to be at Emergence, and maybe they kind of stretch it out. But, par for the course. It's nothing really exciting about this. I think the mixed tag match down the line could hold some weight, getting Tracy Brooks out of retirement or whatever. But, it was just there for me. We'll see where they go with it. Frank Kazarian, Eddie Edwards. And I give Frank Kazarian all the credit in the world. I mean, he's doing what he wants to do because they're featuring him on TV. He definitely would not be featured in AEW. So getting some, matches out there and wrestling with Eddie Edwards, I'll never say no to an Eddie Edwards versus Frank Kazarian match. They continue to show out. So wherever they do it next, I'll be there to watch it. And speaking of being here to watch the return of the Time Splitters, Kushida and Alex Shelley, taking on Moose and Brian Myers, who we were talking about them being a hodgepodge team and a team that similar to what they were doing for this 4-way, thinking that they're just put together. But no, it seems like they're going to be tied together a bit. And I like this pairing of Moose and Myers. It even flows off the tongue when you say Moose and Myers. The Time Splitters, man, if you're not familiar with their work in New Japan Pro Wrestling or that short cup of coffee they had in NXT, really awesome to see Alex Shelley and Kushida working together. And everyone thinks about Alex Shelley as really the main eventer. You think of Alex Shelley, Motor City Machine Guns, but you also should think of him with Kushida. Very, very important piece of his career. Match was a little short for my liking. I think it could have went longer, and I understand that it's an hour show. You're not gonna go 58 minutes when you have a card with 8 different matches. You want to make sure that there's time for other things and you can have meaningful story throughout the card. But I think given the time, these guys could go out there and have a really good match between Moose and Myers. I think they never really had a chance to grow. The match didn't really have an opportunity to breathe. With the crucifix pin for the win on, for Shelley getting the win. Cool. That's awesome. Of course, the main guy, your world champion's not going to lose in any way. He's not going to be pinned. And I thought both teams looked strong here, but it was quick. Like I said, I would like more. And that's my biggest critique. I want more time dedicated to this match. And I really, as critical as I was at throwing Moose and Myers together as a hodgepodge team, they work together. They really do. And Moose looks like $1 million, man. And Brian Myers is in the best shape of his life too. So I like their addition to the tag division. And we have a really, really good depth in the tag division. And you could say the same thing I was just saying with the Knockouts division with the tag division. Between Subculture and the Rascals and ABC. Now, I mean, you can have the variation of Motor City Machine Guns and the Time Splitters, or maybe a variation of both. Team up Kushida and Sabin, goddammit, who cares? And then Moose and Brian Myers. A lot of fun here to see them together, but would like to see long form down the line, a little bit more out of it. So we will, I think. I think it set the stage because it was, you don't want to say fluke. You don't want to say the world champion got a fluke win over Moose and Myers, but it was presented that way a little bit. They wanted to make sure that Moose and Myers is still presented strong, which was awesome. The story was after the match too. Bully Ray immediately ran in. He started beating up Alex Shelley. We got, the walking weapon himself, Josh Alexander, back to a really good pop from the Impact audience in Windsor, came out. He made the save, And out comes Leo Rush. He seems to have made his decision because he jumps Alex Shelley from the beginning of hopping in the ring, and he sides with Bully Ray and his crew. And then out comes Chris Sabin, confirming that he's okay. The announce team played it up like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if Chris Sabin was okay. He makes the save. Leo Rush ducked out of the ring, and then Sabin hit the super kick through him. Man, awesome stuff. To see Sabin back in the ring, I popped because, like I said, I didn't know what was going on with the dude. And I really think that there's more to be told. And this story with all these guys involved just got a little bit more interesting with Josh Alexander now in the fold. And where does everybody fit? I think the ending of the story, and people say the best stories are written when you know the ending and figure out the path to get there. To me, I think the ending is Josh Alexander as your Impact World Champion again. The path to get there now is so fascinating to me, because how do you tie these people together? How does Alex Shelley play into this? Is he going to continue the whole run? Is it going to kind of zig and zag back to Josh Alexander? Does Alexander take it directly from Alex Shelley? Does Leo Rush insert himself? Like I said, all being said, if Leo Rush is healthy, considered here, storytelling goes, is he going to be able to insert himself, steal that title, and all of a sudden you got the Motor City Machine Guns at each other's throat? And does Kushida play a part of this because he is the number one contender of the X Division Championship? Goddamn. Really well done, weaving in and out the main story with all your other championships. It's masterclass of keeping everybody engaged and having everybody tied together in this living, breathing, organic environment that the stories continue to grow. And I'm just fascinated to where they go, because it seems obvious. It seems like drawn clearly to me that Josh Alexander should be your champion, but also him siding with Alex Shelley is going to leave for some interesting story here, because you're not going to get directly there. The title has to come off Shelley first in order to get back to Alexander. I mean, that seems like how they're going to be setting it up, but who's the in-between? It's probably Leo Rush if he's healthy. So all great stuff here. Great storytelling, and seeing Kushida and Alex Shelley. I want to see more of this in Impact Wrestling. So we lead into Zachary Wentz and Mike Bailey. Really great match. Awesome. The way the Rascals have been presented here with Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, it's inevitable that these dudes will be tag champs. Absolutely inevitable. But even on a singles capacity, Trey Miguel, former X Division champion, seeing Zach Wentz back here doing his thing, wrestling a guy like Mike Bailey. Match was great. Phenomenal match, back and forth. Mike Bailey got his stuff in. Zach Wentz got his stuff in. Finished, of course, Trey Miguel's at ringside, and the ref, come on, dude, do your job. Trey Miguel at ringside, you know he's getting involved. Distracts the ref. We had Zach Wentz spraying the spray paint in Mike Bailey's face. And that's really it. Zach Wentz finishes him off. And, man, Mike Bailey is just so goddamn good. And love watching him on a weekly basis here in Impact. I think this guy, potentially, we watched him win the Bola tournament earlier this year. He's a guy that continues to show out every time he's in GCW. I think, man, it was tough to see him lose this match. I understand it. I really do, because the Rascals are being hot-shotted to the top of the card, and I understand it, because you want to make them look strong. And Mike Bailey, he has reason to believe that he could have won the match if not for the interference. So he's saving face here for Mike Bailey, the babyface. But a piece of me was like, man, couldn't this have been someone else to take the L from Zachary Wentz? Because a guy like Mike Bailey, he's been taking a lot of losses lately. I like to see, and he's a guy I would build a card around. So maybe my fandom of Mike Bailey is shining through here. But for the bigger story, what does Mike Bailey get out of this? But the Rascals do shine. And I think, man, that's the other interesting story here with Subculture holding the titles. And the feud is ABC versus the Rascals. But eventually those tag titles are going to wind up on either one of those teams, and that's what it's going to be for. I know on Wrestling Tonight, Chad was saying that the championship doesn't need to be on either team, and I agree for the beginning. But inevitably, it's going to be about the championships. That's what it's always about for both these teams, and they're making it personal with each other, with the Rascals being kicked out of the arena and then jumping in and costing them the match last week on that main event in their rematch. But eventually, it's going to be about the tag titles, and I wonder which one. I would imagine the Rascals are going to get the titles back first. I would imagine, because that's having ABC chase them, and what a great run that would be for them. The Rascals be running, rampant over the whole roster with those titles. has me excited about this. And Subculture too, hanging in the weeds. They're the ones that are champions now too. So it helps them be raised up to the same level. And as I mentioned before, the depth of the tag division, throw Moose and Myers in there as well. Crushing it. So good stuff here. Really good match. Go out of your way to check this match out. Mike Bailey, everything is so snug, so stiff. Can't say enough good things about it. And Zachary Wentz hasn't lost the beat. I know he hasn't been, it's been a while, but the dude's out there doing his own thing. And the presentation too, he feels like a big deal. He came out, the entrance, it feels important. So we have RK Shuttleworth in the chat. He says, when people cheat like that, it doesn't necessarily make them look better. It's the way I feel about Kenny Omega and Impact. Yeah, no, I hear you. The cheating stuff, it feels, it's almost like the trope that they use with back in the day with the DQs. You know, I covered WWF 1998 extensively, where everything was a DQ. You don't want to commit to what the finish was, so you throw a DQ in there. No one has to lose. I feel like the modern day DQ winds up being this spray paint to the face or costing somebody a match. Sometimes it's better just to commit. Maybe there would have been someone better suited to throw in there with Zachary Wentz. If you wanted Zach Wentz to go over and look strong, they are also in turn still trying to make Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel look dastardly too. That's just as much the goal as it is to make them look strong. So I get using the spray paint was always going to happen, but it could have been a clean win over somebody else on the roster. And then the spray paint happens to make Zachary Wentz continue to look imposing against his opponents. So, but yeah, great match. Can't take anything away from it. Mike Bailey, one of my favorite wrestlers going in 2023 and beyond. This guy is incredible. And in our main event here, Eric Young taking on Nick Aldis. As I mentioned in the opening, a big match feel between these two guys. Two former champions, as I mentioned in the opening as well. Two guys that haven't faced each other since 2014. And man, these guys could not be any different than they are now. These guys have come a long way. Almost 10 years have happened. A lot of road has been traveled. This match, again, the crowd was reacting to this match like it was the main event of a pay-per-view. Just tension in the air, just the lockup, everything about it, the reverence in the announcer's voice, presentation, everything felt like a main event of a pay-per-view. And for a tape show that's saying so much, for a tape show that was taped over a week ago, night after Slammiversary, and again, pay-per-view level crowd, they might have been tired too. And they showed out for this match. This we did not know. Maybe they didn't know at the time. This is Nick Aldis' swan song. And he'll be back. Honestly, everybody comes back. I think truly everyone will be back as far as wrestling goes. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Nick Aldis in Impact Wrestling. But man, he put over Eric Young pretty strong here. Clean as a whistle. Hits the pile driver on him. 1, 2, 3. Eric Young goes over. And match was really good. As I said, not as much storyline development in the match because Nick Aldis, that's where his road ends for right now. Just for now, leaving his car and walking away from him. But he'll be, in my opinion, I think he'll be back. His cup of coffee will continue in Impact down the line, even if it's a few months from now. But the goal was to make Eric Young look strong. They did just that. He wasn't ever going to lose. He just returned. I mean, this is his second match because he returned in the match, the tag match with Scott D'Amore, got the win there as well. The story happened after the match. Attacked by Diener and Khan, the design, and not one, not two, but 3 choke slams. And then Diener drops him. He hits him with the DDT, leaves him laying, sits on his chest and makes a mockery of him. This feud with Eric Young and the design is not finished. Clearly, you stab a guy and put him out and think you kill him. In storyline, you have to continue the feud. It's interesting that Diener is continuing the feud and Eric Young is not coming back for revenge. It's like Eric Young doesn't care about these guys anymore. He's bigger than them. But Diener and Khan have made it clear they want to end Eric Young. And this is the perfect stopway point for wherever you decide to go with Eric Young. He's another guy you can insert into this main event feud in some way too. He's deserving of a title shot down the line too. He's a former champion. And if at any point someone gets hurt, like Leo Rush, you could toss a guy like Eric Young in there and just know it's going to work. He's a guy that fans will react to. You know, he's consistent. You know, he's able to carry a match and really carry a company. He's done that for Impact Wrestling before. So putting him in that spot, he'd be a guy you can rely on. And that's their depth too. I keep saying the word depth about Impact Wrestling all across the board, every division, every championship, every every program has depth, and they continue to really show off what they're able to do in the parameters of what they're given. Got to remember they're on AXS TV. They don't have the same level of exposure that AEW and WWE are afforded. And maybe down the line they will. But as of right now, they're doing so much with people can make the argument so little. They maximize every inch of that TV screen with whether it be the time, the presentation, the packaging of all these characters, all these stories, and make you feel smart for watching and paying attention. And I walk away every single week thankful we switched over from covering ROH, all those enhancement talent matches. I mean, what we cover a card was like 14 to 15 matches in one card. Impact is just a joy to watch. And the peaks and valleys of the other companies, the highs of AEW, the highs of WWE are going to be way higher than Impact. They're going to wow you way more than Impact is. But as far as the lows go, there's not many for Impact. There really isn't. It's going to be consistent storytelling. They're going to pay off your fandom. They're going to me, it's been a while since they've made me feel any sort of type of negativity towards the product, because they continue to consistently treat their fans like they're intelligent and tell consistent storylines that make sense cohesively. And that was more of the same tonight. A stop over to really getting to what is going to be an exciting August for the company with Emergence and the Multiverse show. Both great events here, and building up. We're tying into all these sort of inter stories, and the Multiverse show, similar to Forbidden Door. It's a one-off stop of maybe you're not going to have any sort of real tangible title changes or anything crazy happening on the show. It's more about the exposure of having both companies working together. And maybe they do something that's exciting, like, a debut, something like that. But for the most part, the appeal of those shows are just the fact that they're working together. So seeing Alex Shelley step in the ring with Tanahashi is going to be really exciting. And seeing this tag match with Rush and Trey Miguel versus Takahashi and Mike Bailey, that's also going to be exciting. And I wonder who they're going to match up with Trinity. I mean, to me, it sounds like it's going to be Julia, the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. I think they're going to find a way to make that work. That's going to be damn exciting. It gets tricky when you're booking because Julia has been booked very strong and there's no way Trinity's losing. So maybe that's what gets in the way of the booking, but don't let the adversity of getting creative to think of a finish get in the way of putting on what would be the best possible match. So that Multiverse show could be very exciting. And a lot of people want to talk about Forbidden Door is like, man, it's the only time that no, Impact does it as well. We see what other companies do. We saw the Super Show at All Japan, New Japan, and Noah just recently. There's ways to get all the companies in a room together to have finishes that make sense. Impact continues to do it with New Japan Pro Wrestling. They also do it with AEW. It's been less frequently as well. As RK Shuttleworth said in the chat about Kenny Omega coming over to Impact, they've done it before, and I'm sure they'll do it again. It just kind of ebbs and flows when the relationship and when that door is open. The door is always there. You just got to knock. But I'm very excited about this Tanahashi match. Tanahashi's presentation and Impact should be awesome. And I think they'll find a way to maximize it. And Alex Shelley too. Really awesome to see him have this match on this build towards, because we know Shelley's going over Tanahashi. Tanahashi's not winning the Impact Championship. It's another notch in this belt of Alex Shelley to build towards the bigger story, which is surrounded by Josh Alexander, the uncrowned champion. He never lost it. He got hurt. Throw in Leo Rush, throw in Chris Sabin with this mix of he wants his X Division Championship back, but maybe Leo Rush is holding on to the world title that Alex Shelley wants as well. Tie it all together. So I love Shelley's quote that he said on social media in the video. He said, "You were a big senpai to me for years when I was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I looked up to you because you are the ace. Well, guess what? I'm the Joker. Come August 20th, world famous 2300 arena. Go ahead, challenge for this. I'm going to show you why now I'm the best in the world." Man, it has me excited to see Alex Shelley and Hiroshi Tanahashi taking in the ECW arena. So awesome to see. Man, good stuff. And that's how they went off the air in Impact on AXS. So great night of TV. I'm curious to hear Colton's thoughts on it, what he thought about Impact, because the dude does his research, one of the best in the business. My dude, I'm lucky to be working with him. Love doing 2 shows with him on a weekly basis now. Miss him at Malt.mania. Make sure you guys check him out on Instagram. Crushing it. But you guys will see him tomorrow, as I said, on Shot Nostalgia. We taped that in advance, and the beautiful mullet is there in all its glory. With that being said, let's get to impactful moment. I'll pick my favorite match or moment from this week's Impact on AXS.
Impactful.
Man, here we are for the impactful moment. And I was torn between 2 matches here. And I really, really loved the Speedball Mike Bailey match with Zachary Wentz. But I have to say my match of the week was Michelle Shaw versus Masha Slamovich. Thought this was a great match. And I don't use the word great loosely here. This match had a lot to this match. And the knockouts feud being advanced, that also added to it. But I was very impressed with Giselle Shaw and her intensity and her agility in the ring, and keeping up with Masha Slamovich's aggressiveness and the presentation of MK Ultra and everything that goes into Masha and Killer Kelly. Giselle Shaw shined in this match, and I thought this match was great. Man, and I thought the announcers did a great job of emphasizing really the new level of intensity that Masha and Killer Kelly have been showing, which also shows in turn with Giselle was keeping up with them. The announce team does such an excellent job too of telling the story and keeping people invested in what's going on, talking about the history of the matches every time they've ever locked up in the ring, talking about the dog collar match with Masha and Killer Kelly because they're on your screen, and making it clear why you should care about what's happening in front of you. And that seems obvious that the announcer should do that, but it's not always the case. But can't say enough good things about this match. I would say if you're really like on a crunch for time, you need to check this out. I would really check out Eric Young, Nick Aldis, Zach Wentz, and Mike Bailey. And then if you had to pick it, to me, the best match of the night, Giselle Shaw versus Masha Slamovich. So those are the 3 quintessential matches to really get the feel of what's going on here for the night. So like I said, great match. Check it out. Not going to be disappointed. Let's get to shock and awe, give a final wrap up, get prepared for next week. And I'll do some shilling for the tavern. I'll do some shilling for Colton, who's at the Impact Arena over there, as you get to see in the beautiful picture. But let's get to shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
All right, shock and awe. And this is our wrap up here. Next week's show will be on August 3rd for the weekly TV show on Impact. We'll talk about all the latest news in Impact. We'll give you guys the update on Leo Rush. Maybe we'll have more of a card for the Multiverse show. Maybe we'll have more of a card for Emergence. We definitely will have the results of the 2 nights of tapings. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers for the second night. Of course, we're going to be watching everything that happens that first night at Cicero Stadium in Chicago. We're going to talk about everything going on there. For tomorrow, make sure you guys check us out. Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Season 4 of Shot Nostalgia, talking about, man, all the great stuff going on. Jake Roberts decides not to show. We start talking about all the other crazy stuff going on in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the emergence of Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, Chris Jericho breaking his arm and leaving a hospital and working the same show that same night with a broken forearm and paying his dues, as they say. It's been such a blast covering Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Shot Nostalgia. It's a sprint to the finish line for the season, 7 episodes of 2 months at a time. The last 2 episodes will be November and December, so we'll cover 1 month for those last 2 episodes, and then we lead right into in the end of August for Saturday night's main event. And as I was saying on some other shows, you might have heard me say this, forgive me if you've heard this already, but if you guys subscribe to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they do not have all the newsletters in the history that's been going on since 84, 83, something like that, digitized. So all these ones used to be on typewriters where Dave would send them out physically. So some intern, someone who worked for the Observer has been working on it slowly to add the old newsletters. So there's most of them from 92 until now. Everything is sort of in there. Maybe it's a little bit later than that. So for Saturday night's main event, as you guys know, the beginning of Saturday night's main event was 1985. So to me, a big part of Shot Nostalgia has been utilizing Dave Meltzer's newsletters to fill the gaps and come up with the financials and the thinkings. And what's really fascinating about getting the newsletters, which I did, I contacted a guy named Grant who sells the newsletters, the original ones, and mails them out to you. So they should be here tomorrow. and I'll be checking them out, is the build up to WrestleMania 1 and what's going on in the newsletter and talking about the world of wrestling and getting briefed on all that stuff. And of course, it's going to put the parameters on the relationship between NBC and WWF and Dick Ebersol and Vince McMahon and that relationship and how that came to part. Because I don't think we could talk about Saturday Night's Main Event without that piece. That's a big piece of shot nostalgia that I want to make sure we continue. And so I splurged a little bit buying the newsletters. I forget what the exact price was, but they weren't the most expensive, but they weren't cheap to get these shipped to my house. So we'll be utilizing them to tell the story of what was going on, to build context. That's the biggest thing for the history of wrestling. I want to build context because we can watch the show. We can talk about what we liked about it. We can say that we like Macho Man in the ring, but I like building the context of the stuff going on behind the scenes and the stuff that goes on. You watch shoot interviews and talk about what was happening in the moment at that time to sort of build an understanding. And that's what we do, to me, in my opinion, for every season. WCW 96, ECW 95, WWF 1998, Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. We're building the surrounding world so you understand the importance of everything that was going on in the world at large. So more of that to come in the next season. Saturday Night's Main Event, covering every single episode, even the ones that get renewed, the ones in 2006 where they had like the Spirit Squad against DX or whatever, and CM Punk's on them as well. We're going to be covering everything that kind of happens around Saturday Night's Main Event. It's going to be a different season for sure. It might be just as long. I didn't separate and figure out exactly how. I think we're going to be doing 2 episodes, Saturday Night's Main Event, every single week. But I'd figure out exactly how many episodes. We'll figure that out. Maybe it's like 18 episodes, something like that. But it's going to be fun. And it's going to be different because usually we cover 1 year, but we're going to be spanning over the course of many years. The original Saturday Night's Main Event ranged for a short period of time, but even the renewal. So it should be fun, different season. Thank you guys for hanging and making this fun. Special shout out to RK Shuttleworth for hanging here on Twitch and making sure you're keeping me company, talking Impact Wrestling. I look forward to chatting with you every single week in here. Appreciate the support. Make sure you guys also go to theturnbuckletavern.com to like and subscribe to everything we do here. Social media, you go to Instagram. As I mentioned before, we're on Twitch. Pro Wrestling Tees. Go out there and buy a shirt. We got some good tavern shirts, some new ones coming out as well. Spotify, Apple, all the places you can find us. Make sure you support us. All free content. Make sure you guys leave a review. If you leave a review, I'll send you a sticker. At Acefield Retro, send me a message. You leave a 5-star review for Turnbuckle Tavern, I will send you a sticker. I got some Acefield Retro stickers. I got some Shot Nostalgia stickers. I also have some Tavern stickers. So if you send me a message, hey, Ace, I left a 5-star review, screenshot it for me, Apple or Spotify, wherever you put it, I will send you some stickers for free in the mail. You send me your address for free. You have them right to your door, just like I get the Observer newsletters to my door, except you don't have to spend money for it. But it's been a blast, guys. Thank you so much for hanging with me. And I cannot wait to have Colton next week back with me, talking all things Impact, talking about the concert he went to and all that stuff. So I look forward to it. I appreciate it. And guys, make sure you, again, check out Shot Nostalgia next week, tomorrow night. And then following that, I interviewed Paul Loria from ECW 1995, from HWA, from my hometown of Long Island, New York. The giant Paul Loria is going to be here on the Tavern, visiting the Tavern, talking all things ECW 95, Paul Heyman, working with Mikey Whipwreck, growing up on Long Island. How did he train to be a wrestler? Great stories for a little bit over an hour. Absolutely epic conversation. I really appreciate Paul Loria stopping on and spending some time with me. You guys will not want to miss the interview. If you want a sneak peek of it, don't tell anyone I told you this, but go to Acefield Retro on Spotify or Apple and check out the audio of it. Video drops tomorrow night following Shot Nostalgia. You guys can also check out the audio drop on the Tavern's feed Wednesday. So it's following you all different spots. You find it where you find it. Great stories you do not want to miss. So make sure you guys are tuned into all the stuff in the Tavern and, follow us all on social media at Turnbuckle Tavern, at Acefield Retro, at Mullet.mania. Until next time, guys, I appreciate the support. Catch you guys after a while.